Hey everyone, how's it going? Azren the Language Nerd here. Hope you're doing very, very well. Welcome to episode number 10, I believe, of Azren's Journal. This is a segment on my YouTube channel where I share my personal language learning journey, and of course a segment where I give you guys a whole bunch of language learning tips. With that aside, let's jump right in. The biggest thing on my mind today when it comes to language learning is the subjectiveness of fluency. You see, if you were to ask me, Azren, do you consider yourself fluent in French and Spanish? I would answer to you, yes. I speak both of them very well. I feel really comfortable. I can read, I can write, I can speak, I can listen, I can understand. I have an expansive vocabulary, etc., etc., etc. But the fact of the matter is this. Recently, I've been using my French and Spanish in different ways in relation to my work that in the past I've not really had to do. So a good example is, in a previous video, I mentioned that I currently hired on a part-time person to help out with some things in my business, and she is a Colombian lady. So when we're working, a lot of our interactions, a lot of the things that we're doing are done in Spanish. And I'll be honest, I've never really been in a work scenario where Spanish is the primary medium of communication, and that's making me realize a lot of vocabulary gaps and certain scenarios where I don't necessarily know how I should be communicating or what the appropriate way to speak is. And this has been a big reminder for me that fluency, or the perception or the feeling of being fluent in a language, is heavily dependent upon the environment in which you are in. This is why I've actually met a lot of people who say, oh yeah, I can speak blah 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 language, I can speak French, I can speak Spanish, I can speak English, I can speak this language, I'm fluent. I've met lots of people like this, but by my definition of fluency, they're not fluent at all. They're just intermediate, they're just acceptable, they're just fine, they can get by. However, for their needs, for the scenarios they find themselves in, whether it be traveling abroad, whether it be tourist stuff, whether it be who knows, it's always different. But for their scenarios, their level is more than enough to help them get through everything, and so they consider themselves, or they feel, fluent. And so, for the real language nerds, the hardcore ones, the ones who really want to get to like a super fluent level in a language and want to be like a native speaker or whatever, please understand that it's this forever kind of process. That even me, when I've been doing French since the age of 5, for 21 years I've been doing French. Spanish has been for the past roughly 10 years or so, give or take. Even for those languages where I live and breathe them, I teach them, I feel so confident, I've traveled, I have such a deep base in both of those languages and such a deep knowledge base, there's still so much that I just don't know. It's just reality. And so it's a forever process that's never ending. While we're on the topic of fluency, let's go in a slightly different direction here. The past little while, I've been restructuring things with my work, and as a result, I've been able to take on more students, more new students lately, in different capacities, and I've been able to help more people just because of how I'm structuring my time, how I'm structuring the lessons, and it's been overall really, really positive. Now, one of the people that I've taken on recently as a student, she was mentioning to me that she wants to be able to speak and communicate and get her message across and have conversations in French. However, she's not necessarily overly super duper concerned about all of the grammar. In other words, if she says something and there's some mistakes in the way she said it, it wasn't pronounced properly, there's grammar errors, there's whatever, she's not overly concerned as long as people are able to understand her and she's able to understand other people, generally speaking, in simple day-to-day kind of situations. And so it was interesting when she told me this, right? And it was something that I want to talk about on this video, because you do not, as a language learner, need to try and go for super fluent in a language to meet your needs. You simply have to think about, where do you want to end up? Like, how far through the language do you want to get? And why? Do you want to get to a super fluent level? If yes, why? Is it because you think that's cool? Is it because you think it's the only option? Is it because you think people are going to judge you if you don't? Because by the way, that's not necessarily true. You know, what's the reasoning, and ultimately what level do you actually need to achieve in said language? Once you figure that out, it's just a matter of reverse engineering that and figuring out, working backwards to figure out what steps you need to take to achieve that kind of outcome or that kind of language learning goal. While we're on the topic of this language learning, let me give you a long needed update in terms of my personal studies here. So on the Mandarin side of things, I'm currently at 140 new words, and I want to be specific. It's 140 new words / grammar concepts. I want to be specific on that because I'm not just building the vocabulary. There are a lot of grammar things I'm learning too. So it's 140 on that side. And then on the Gujarati side here, we're looking at a total of, looks like 37, 38, 39, 40. Currently at about 40 different words, grammar points, etc. A massive thing that is standing out to me when it comes to my own personal studies is doing things to make sure it's a priority. It is so easy to let other things get in the way of your language learning. Like for me, even me as the language nerd, Azren the language nerd, polyglot Azren, even for me, it's crazy how the past little while, I haven't touched Gujarati. It's been a good, I would say, week as I'm recording this video that I've done almost nothing really actively with Gujarati, very little, because I've been prioritizing my work. I've been doing a lot more collaborations, setting up cool partnerships, focusing on the content, right? I'm doing a lot on Mandarin because my Mandarin classes at the university have started again. And so Mandarin's getting a significant portion of my time. And so the Gujarati's just been falling by the wayside. And this is why, in my perspective, if it's important to you, if you really want to make sure that you're moving a certain language forward, there has to be a system in place. There has to be something you have in place that forces you to keep that language as a priority and make sure you are actually practicing that language on a regular and using that language on a regular basis. For me, on the Gujarati side, the reason I'm thinking about this is because my teacher messaged me yesterday. She's like, "Hey Azren, I just noticed we haven't had a class in a week. Everything okay? You said you're gonna message me to schedule something, but you never actually did." That external accountability has now reminded me to be like, oh crap, she's right. I better do something about that. And so this week, some Gujarati is gonna have to happen unless I want her to text me again and remind me to be like, Azren, are we scheduling something? I'm confused. And she will do it. And I'm happy that she does. I think a good learning point we can point out here is for language teachers, right? I highly recommend that you are in your students' DMs, that you're in your students' WhatsApp, you're in your students' text messaging. They should be hearing from you. If you have weekly lessons, let's say, even if it's a group class or something, they should be hearing from you, but hearing from you via text, DM, whatever, a couple of times at least between the lessons, because your students are going to forget. They're not going to do, a lot of them are not going to do what they said they're going to do. Some of them will, and maybe they don't need to see you in their DMs and such, but a lot of them won't, right? Even if it's a group class, even if it's a larger group, and you're thinking, Azren, how the heck can I text everybody? How can I stay on top of that? Well, do what my Mandarin teacher at the university's done. She has created a group chat with the class. We have a group chat where she's like, hey, I'm gonna post stuff for you guys. It's gonna be homework and assignments. It's gonna be stuff that is coming through this group chat that you have to keep up with. That appears directly on your phone. It's very difficult to ignore it, and it's a real reminder for students to actually do something. On the students, for the people who are learning, whether you're in a class or if you're self-learning, find someone, a language exchange partner, ask your tutor, ask your teacher, ask a friend you know. You gotta get someone who shows up in your phone, right? Directly on your phone, in your DMs, like right so you see it, to remind you as a real kind of like incentive or motivator to make sure you are being consistent with whatever language or languages that you're trying to learn. On another language learning note, I've been thinking a lot recently about the importance of observing normal, natural, day-to-day conversations. You see, a lot of people when they're studying languages, they use a textbook or they use like an online program, they use YouTube videos, they use a lot of instructional content, they use blah, 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 right? They do writing practice, even speaking practice at times, right? But you have to understand that you have to find resources that allow you to observe natural conversations, like normal day-to-day kinds of conversations, right? And you have to be able to observe them and watch them. There's a lot of learning that can be done. Because often, you learn these words, you learn this grammar, you understand, oh, hello is this, oh, how are you is this. You understand that at an intellectual level, but seeing as you've never actually seen that or observed that in a real life situation, 2 or 3 or 4 real people actually using those words in real situations, oftentimes that knowledge you learn does not actually properly stick in your brain. This is why resources such as Easy Languages, the YouTube channel where I make some English videos, but they have Mandarin and Spanish and French and so many other languages on it, so if you haven't checked it out, check it out. But this is why channels like Easy Languages, or for Mandarin, YoYo Chinese is something I'm a big fan of. There's so many of them. You have to find stuff where you can observe real life scenarios and how language is being used in those real life scenarios. This is also why I like to travel abroad. I get to see people order food in a restaurant and be like, oh, that's how they say it. Make sure that you have those kinds of resources. It's gonna help you tremendously, oh so much. One more thing I want to jump into in this video is more on the personal side. I like to bring some personal stuff into these videos to talk about what's happening kind of in my world, is around work and balancing work and personal life. As you guys probably know, I love my work. I really like it. I enjoy it. It's fun. I like making these videos. I like teaching. I like preparing for classes. I love a lot of the language learning events that I run and the language communities that I run locally. I like replying to people. I love all of it so much, which is one of the big reasons why I work so much. I work a good 60 plus hours a week because that's just what I want to be doing with my time. Oftentimes it's not even work because that's just what I want, what I would choose to do regardless, often. And yeah, that being said, you know, I've been thinking a lot about the balance of the other things I like too, such as seeing friends, seeing family, spending time with my sister. Because one of the thoughts that I have, you know, reasonably often during the nighttime is how much my work would not matter to me if I didn't have my family, or if I had a loss of a family member, or a close friend who got sick, or something like that, or some kind of terrible thing really happened. And it just puts it into perspective. And I was like, holy cow, it's crazy how because a lot of the really important things, friends and family notably, right? Because those are even just like basic needs are met, roof over my head, food in the fridge, clean water, like basic needs are met, and a lot of the really important things like friends and family, it's only because those things are really met that I'm able to go have fun and work. It's a crazy thought that I have, and it's crazy how, at least to me, I think about how everything could change one day. Like, one thing happens, and suddenly your world turns upside down for a 3 to 6 year window because something crazy happened. You got sick, someone got sick, there's an accident, you know, problem at the house where you get a big damage, big flood, you're homeless, or you need to move in with your other family member for a while. Like, there's a lot of real stuff that can happen. And I don't know, it's something I was thinking about. It makes me feel really grateful, I think, for all the stuff that I have now. And I always try to remind myself that, you know, when something happens, because stuff happens for all of us at some point or another, you know, when something happens, I just have to, I guess I'm just curious to see how I'll deal with it. I'm curious to see if I'll keep a positive mentality. I'm curious to see what will happen, how I'll push through it, how will I react. Hopefully, cross my fingers, I'll deal with it well, but just a random thing that was on my mind that I think a lot about because, you know, a lot of the reasons why I'm so positive most of the time and happy and such just has to do with a good scenario. Basic needs are met, no crazy negative things going on in my life, you know, family's healthy, my sister is doing really well, I was raised in a good home, you know, so since all those basic things, a lot of those kinds of things are taken care of, that is what allows me to go attack the world, not in a negative way, but approach the world, let's say, approach the rest of my life with my work, with teaching languages, learning languages, and approach it in such a positive kind of mindset and do it with such a smile on my face and being happy and everything like that. So, just a random thing that was on my mind. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. I appreciate your attention. One little ask before you hop off. If you do not follow my podcast, I'd appreciate I would appreciate it so much if you did. It's called the Language Learning Show. I'm gonna put a link on the screen and in the description below. And yeah, we can finish this video up here. Thanks again for watching this. I appreciate it. And we'll talk next time. Bye for now. See you.